V'daber Hashem Moshe Lemor. Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'amarta lehem. Speak to the Jewish people. You should say to them, Ish Ish, Kisista Ishto. Now, the word Ish is mentioned twice, which the question is why. So Ish, a person whose wife has veered from the proper path. Mal bo mal, and she betrayed him. A woman who veers from the path of modesty, and she betrays. What's Ish Ish? So we'll see in a moment. Ish Ish ki sista ish mal mal. So Rashi explains here. Ish Ish lelamdo shemaelos b'shtayim. The Torah is alluding that she's actually betraying two. She's betraying God. And her husband who's on the terrestrial level. God, she's betraying God by behaving this way, as Hashem is referred to as Ish Milchama. He's the man of war. And Ish Shalamato. And her husband, which is the human husband. I'd mentioned that according to the Bavli, what happened at the time of the giving of the Torah at Sinai? Hashem first offered the Torah to the nations of the world. They rejected it, then he offered it to us. We accepted it unequivocally. But the Midrash, which is the Yalkut, which is a compilation of Midrashim, explains that he didn't offer it to them. He gave us the Torah, we accepted it. And after we accepted it, the nation of the world came with a complaint. Why did you offer it to us? So Hashem says to the nations of the world, my children, they're able to prove their pedigree. As it said in last week's Parsha, by Yisialdo Mishpachosam, they were able to bring the documents of pedigree. Could you people in any way prove your pedigree? You're all issues of illegitimacy, incest, adultery. You're not able to do that. So when they heard this, the nation of the world heard what the Jews were. It says, a pasuk in Mishlei, Kamu v'aner v'yashua. The children stood up and v'yashua, and they extolled her, meaning they never heard of such a thing. The Jews should have such a pure pedigree. So God says, therefore, you're not eligible, the Jews qualify. So the question is, why is this a prerequisite to having a relationship with Hashem? You have to maintain that purity, which is pedigree. We find the Gemara tells us a Kedushin that to be qualified for conscription in David HaMelech's army, when they went to war, you had to have pedigree. If your pedigree was not pure, you were not qualified to go to battle, because you only merited what we call the Siyata D'Shmaya, the divine assistance, to have victory in battle only if you had that, you have that certain caliber. Although, again, the person's not faulted. The person's only the product of the parents who acted irresponsibly. But nevertheless, if the person was not of that special pedigree, he was not qualified to go to battle in David HaMelech's army. Only the people, what we call yichus, the ones who had yichus. The question, what is the understanding? So what I was thinking, that we find at the time of creation, when Hashem created the world, on the third day where he created vegetation, the trees, the herbs, the grass, all that, the Torah says, lemino, lemino. Each species was created according to its species. Each species was pure. It comes to the animals, also lemino, lemino, according to its species. We had mentioned that a Jew is not permitted to crossbreed crops, grains, any type of produce, and you're not permitted to crossbreed animals. you're permitted to benefit from after the crossbreed takes place, you could benefit from the grain and from the fruit, from the produce. But factually, it's Torah violation. A Jew is not permitted. So a mule, which is a crossbreed between a horse and a donkey, a Jew is not permitted to do this. Crossbreeding, why? Because Torah says it has to be according to its pure species. What does that mean? When God created the world, he set up certain systems. The systems function in a certain way. So if there's such a thing as a donkey and a horse, and there's a peach and there's a plum, each one of these species, in terms of the energy flows, it's meant to be the systems. Certain energy produces one type of fruit, another energy produces another type of fruit. Within the classification of fruits or vegetables or herbs or grains. If a person goes and crossbreeds it, he's actually disrupting God's plan of creation. He allows there should be, factually, he allows there should be a result. That's part of, you're able to undermine the system. There's a Gemara in Avodah Zarah, which we had, where one of the heathens said to one of the Tanoim that if idolatry is not permitted and there is a God, so why doesn't God destroy the object that the non-Jew worships? So he explains, he says, because you people worship whatever you worship, God should destroy the world. Because they worship the sun, God should destroy the sun or destroy the moon or destroy any aspect of existence. You people are culpable, but God allows it to take place. Then he says, what about if the person commits adultery and this illegitimate child? Why does God allow conception that child should be conceived as an illegitimate child within the context of adultery or incest? He says the same thing. There is a process called procreation. Because this person wants to act irresponsibly, God will not stop and not allow that result to take place. But it's not the intent of creation. So therefore, for this, a Jew is not permitted to crossbreed crops, to crossbreed animals. And the Gemara tells us that a person who's a witch, what we call a machashefa, the Torah says machashefa lo sechaya. A witch is punished by death. A person who's a witch, whether it's a man or a woman. And Rashi over there cites the Midrash. So why does it mention the witch in the feminine, not in the masculine? So Rashi says because the majority of witches were usually females, not men. Men did not engage in witchcraft. It was predominantly women. Therefore, Torah refers to it in mechashefo, in the female. But why is it so serious? So the Gemara explains. We want to study Chulin because the reason why mechashefo means makchishim pamal yishamalo. That witchcraft is not sleight of hand. Witchcraft is a reality. They're able to actually take water, turn it into blood, or take one thing, turn it into something else. What does it mean? Because God set up a system, an energy flow, and that energy allows certain things to manifest themselves a certain way. The witch, the one who engages in sorcery, he's able to go and interfere with that energy flow, disrupt it, and introduce other things, which the end result is a different result. So for disrupting God's plan system, where he says it flows this way, you say it flows differently, for that reason, the person is liable for the death penalty. That's the level of culpability. That's the basis for the culpability. Therefore, it's punishable by death, the witch. That's makchishim pamal yishamalu. You're undermining the heavenly retinue of God, because the angels who were created to oversee the energy flow, you're disrupting that energy flow. Therefore, as a result, so I'm saying the know all this. So if a person goes and commits adultery, God forbid, the Gemara tells us in Kedushin that every soul, when you marry a woman, the woman complements the soul of the man. A person is not considered whole until he meets his soulmate. That's why it's called soulmate. So if God forbid, another man engages with the woman who's not his soulmate because she's attached to somebody else's neshama, that itself is a breach. It's the same idea. since it's connected to another person's neshama, you can't engage in this act because that undermines, that interferes with that, because it doesn't have any relevance to you. As a result of that, it's punishable by death. Therefore, it says, Ishish, not only betraying your human husband, you train God, who's what? Who's Ish Milchama, that's why he's called Ish, he's the man of war. Now, Gemara tells us in Nida, the Gemara speaks about Cleopatra. Cleopatra approached one of the Tanoim and says, I'm amazed at God that the process of procreation, it's like amazing, it's miraculous. Why is it miraculous? Why is it miraculous? You have an ovum, you have this colorless fluid, which is called semen, and when it fertilizes the ovum, what happens? You have bone, you have sinew, you have flesh, you have cartilage, you have hair, you have the eye, which is the pupil, and you have the white of the eye, and all these different manifestations come about due to this colorless fluid coming in contact, fertilizing that ovum. She was amazed. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. Conception and the end result. And not only that, every species, when it carries its fetus, every species walks on four. So the fetus is supported by the flank of the animal. The human being walks on two, so the fetus actually is suspended downward. Based on laws of gravity, the child should really fall out of the body of the mother. But yet, somehow, miraculously, the body contains the child and retains it and does not release it until it's ready for birth. She's amazed. These are all the things Cleopatra noticed. She's amazed. So from the time of conception till birth, when the child comes out of the mother and is ready to come out, this is all miracle. It's a miracle. When we speak Hashem Ish Milchama, what's Ish Milchama? Ish Milchama means at the time of Kriyas Yamsov, Hashem was Ish Milchama. He brought about miracles, and those miracles were to defend. He acted in a context to defend his creation. Bishvil Yisrael, because the Egyptians, they introduced idolatry, whatever they did, and they were representative evil, which was the antithesis of whatever Hashem was. Therefore, he destroyed them. That's Ish Milchama. He destroyed them with a vengeance. The sea came down on them, and each one was destroyed. As it says over there, some of them died immediately. Some of them, he kept life in them until finally they died in the water. And whatever happened at Yam Suf, that was, Hashem was Ish Milchama. Ish. Hashem over here, if you cross this line, who did this man and woman betray, which committed adultery? The Ish, which is the human husband, and Hashem, which is the Ish Milchama. In what way was it a betrayal to Hashem? Because when he set up the systems, each woman is supposed to complement the neshama of her husband. Another man who interferes and engages in this act, which is the procreation act, this undermines that process, and therefore it's punishable by death.